What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video, we're talking about how anyone can make $100,000 passively. That might sound too good to be true, but it's true. Maybe not anyone, but the vast majority of people that are going to be watching this video, yourself included, you're probably going to be able to fit into this category of somebody who can make $100,000 passively. A bit of a catch, you're not going to be able to do it right now. All right, it's going to take a little bit of time and some dedication, but your future self is going to thank you tenfold. A lot of people don't know about this method. A lot of people do, and a lot of people are actively implementing it in their lives. But just in case you're somebody who doesn't, I know most of my subscribers are young people, so I figured this would be a very good video to make for you guys. I know a lot of young people don't know about this. So how to make $100,000 a year passively. It was Albert Einstein who said that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world, okay? So there's a theme in today's day and age of people really going after instant gratification. And that's not really a theme just in today's day and age. It's really human nature to kind of crave instant gratification. But if you can learn how to put that off and learn how to go after delayed gratification instead, it's going to be a lot more fruitful for you. So let's talk about this method. Let's get right into it. $100,000 a year passively. You're going to be utilizing compound interest, guys, okay? So there's something called the S&P 500. You might have heard of it. It's pretty much a group of the 500 most wealthy stocks, the 500 most valuable stocks on the stock market. There's another thing called the NASDAQ 100. It's the 100 most successful tech companies. Those groups of stocks have an average return of about 10% annually. When you look at, how long they've been around for, they yield about 10% of a return in your investment. So that means if you put down $100, you are pretty likely to turn that $100 into 110 in a year. Now, you're going to be utilizing compound interest. Turning $100 into $110 over the course of a year doesn't sound all that exciting. But we're going to look at the wonders of compound interest here, okay? And this is where I said it's important to learn how to kind of resist the temptation of instant gratification, of going out to the bar and spending that $100 at the bar and then it's gone, versus recognizing the value of delayed gratification. So putting that $100 to good use and letting it earn you compound interest. So I'm going to share my screen here. Share screen, desktop, share. And I'm going to pull up an investment calculator, which I have open right now. So if you could set aside $300 a month and invest it into what I was talking about before, either the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100, you're going to invest it in these things through what's called an ETF. So you open up a tax-free savings account, and then you can go invest in an ETF that mimics this group of stocks, either the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100, whatever. You could pick based off of what yields a higher return. I personally like to invest in both of them. So if you're able to set aside an extra $300 a month, and if you really take a look at the way you spend your money, there's a good chance that you are probably spending $300 a month on stuff that's pretty just like I said, you're going to the bar and spending $100, or you're going to the club on weekend and you drop $200, stuff like that. There's a good chance that you can find a way to come up with an extra $300 a month. I'm really big on saying that you should live below your means so that you're practicing good habits around money. I have a lot of other videos surrounding money, like about money psychology, but this is really just a strategy. And I'll do a bit of a meta-analysis on this whole strategy at the end. And I kind of already have. I've talked about, the instant versus delayed gratification. But let me just get right into the strategy itself. So if you could put aside an extra $300 a month, this is just an investment calculator. You can go into Google, type it in, click the first thing that comes up. You'll find something like this, and you can play with the numbers yourself. But what I have here is $300 a month at a 10% return rate, compounding, not monthly. compounding. Where's yearly? Yearly. Anyway, beautiful. All right. After 35 years, that $300 a month, which only adds up to you actually setting aside $126,000, and that's over the course of 35 years, you're going to come up with $1 million in your investment account. So that is a total gain of almost $900,000 you can see here. Now you might be thinking, the video's title here, maybe it's a little bit misleading. Maybe it's a little clickbaity. I titled the video, How Anybody Can Make $100,000 Passively. But it's true, because once you wait out that 35 years, this is kind of like just a really smart way to set the wheels in motion for your retirement plan, especially the younger that you are and that the earlier you start doing this, the better off you're going to be. So 35 years, if you're 30 years old, you're going to be 65 by the time that you have this $1 million in your investment account. And then this $1 million here is going to now earn you $100,000 on the next year, because it's a 10% gain. 10% of $1 million is 100,000, right? So now what you could do if you want, this is just like the little strategy that I thought of, is extract that 100,000, and now you could use that. That's like your income, right? That's like your pension, so to speak. If you don't have a pension plan, this could be your pension plan. So that is your income. You have $100,000 that you can now extract at the end of that year, that next year, and now your balance is back to $1 million, and it's gonna just keep earning you an average of $100,000 a year. Maybe 1 year it earns you 50,000 because there was only a 5% return rate. Maybe 1 year it earns you 150,000, but you get the point. There's going to be an average of $100,000 of income that you're pulling in by implementing this strategy. Now that's if, the example is you're 30 years old and you're waiting till you're 65. This is like a retirement plan, like I said. But it's also a way to just make $100,000 a year passively, right? This is by an additional contribution of $300 a month. The max that you're currently allowed to contribute, if you're dividing it up monthly, you're allowed to contribute $6,000 a year into your tax-free savings account. So that is $500 a month. If you are able to set aside that extra $500 a month, let's see, like how many years does it take you to cross the $1 million threshold? So at 35 years, you're at 1.7 million. If you could do the maximum contribution at, looks like about 29 years here, you can see the green line, you cross $1 million. So if you're 30 years old, before you even turn 60, if you're able to put in that 500, you're going to get your, why aren't I able to click this? There we go. You're going to get your money-making machine, your $1 million investment account that's going to be turning out, okay, I guess it's closer to 30 years. That's going to be turning out $100,000 a year on average in income. Now, let's pretend that you're somebody watching this video and you're 20 years old, right? If you're 20 years old and you set aside that $500 a month, which granted, it'll probably be a little harder for you if you're 20 years old. You're still kind of like finding your way. That extra $500 a month, if you can set that aside, by the time you're 50, you're going to have that money-making machine. So you can retire no matter who you are, no matter what your job is or was. You can retire when you're 50 because you're going to be making 6 figures a year. That's pretty freaking good. And I understand that, like, maybe in 30 years, 6 figures is going to be worth like half of what it is now, but still. So you can, anyways, you get the point, guys. You can play with this yourself, even if you're only allowed to, or you're only able to put in like $200 a month, and you get at that for 40 years. Let's say you can put in $5,000 to start. Just right when you open your TFSA, you put in $5,000 to start. It'll take you, let's see here, when do we cross this $1 million line? I'm looking at my, here's my cursor, you can see it. looks like that's about 36, 37 years. So, if you're 20 years old, that's going to be your 57 by the time you have your six-figure money-making machine in this way. Now, this is a quote from Warren Buffett. A lot of people, I'm going to butcher this, I'm just paraphrasing here, but a lot of people want to get rich quick. Everybody wants to get rich quick. But if they were willing to get rich slow, everybody could be rich. And this is proof. This little calculator here is proof. So you could pull up this calculator, like I said, this is just an investment calculator that you can pull up off of Google and play around with the numbers, play around with your age and how long you want to be investing for, and maybe what your starting contribution could be. Like if you could afford to put in $5,000. By the way, if you're like, 21, 22 years old, your contribution limit adds up. So it carries over from the previous years. So if you're, that's what, 18, 19, 20, 21, you can open your investment account once you're 18. So if you're like 21, that's 4 years of eligibility. So that's $6,000 a year times 4 years. So if you wanted to, if you can, you're allowed to put in $24,000 right off the bat. So that's just something to be aware of. Now, you might be thinking, well, why wouldn't I just wait till I make all my money through my career and then invest my $1 million and then get my six-figure money-making machine? You have a contribution limit, like I said, so you're not allowed to put in $1 million right up, like just all at once, even if you haven't touched any, like you haven't opened a TFSA for 30 years. Maybe you're 48. Is my math right? Yeah, maybe you're 48 and you have 30 years of eligibility. What's 30 years times 6,000? I'm going to be lazy. That's only $180,000 that you're allowed to put in all at once. So that you're not going to be allowed, if let's say you become a millionaire and now you're just, there's other ways to make that passive income once you're a millionaire, but if that's a question you have, that's not something that you're going to be allowed to do with a traditional like TFSA. So it's very important to start young and let your money earn you interest so that you can reach that higher point with your earnings, not just with you putting your money in. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about just compound interest overall, okay? So by the way, this is all assuming that you just put your money in there and you leave it there. Okay, you're not touching this. This is money that, if you're planning on doing this, if you're seeing, oh, wow, this is a really good idea, and I really advise that you get on this. This is money that you're putting in that you do not need. It's not like part of your budget in that sense of like part of your expenses for survival. This is excess money. This is extra money that you can afford to just put in there and forget about it until you're 50 or 60 years old, or however long according to the plan that you make using your little calculator here. But now let me just talk about compound interest as like an overview. You can see here that at the 20-year mark, just look at my cursor here at the bottom left of the screen. At the 20-year mark, this little blue line is the amount of money, like the light blue line is the amount of money that you've actually put in. The green line is the total amount of money that you have, okay? And like that's including all the earnings, that the amount of money that you put in here. You can see that the separation between them isn't that big. It's still like pretty considerable. Like you're still probably quadrupling your money, maybe not quadrupling, you're probably tripling your money, it looks like. But look at the difference after 40 years versus 20 years. Look at the gap between the blue line and the green line after 40 years versus 20 years. Okay, so this is the power of compound interest, guys. It's an exponential function. So in the beginning, and even like in the mid game, you don't really see a lot of gains, especially like look at 10 years. It's like, there's barely any separation between them. 10% over 10 years, like there's not a lot of, it's not really like jaw dropping at 10 years or 20 years. But when you look at what it does for you at 40 years, it's like, oh, holy shit, I should get on this right away. So this is the power of compound interest. The more that you could put in, the quicker you're going to see your results. But this is not just the case for the financial world. This is the case for anything, like investing your time and energy into developing a skill or learning something new. This is the way that it works. In the beginning, you're not really going to see a lot of results necessarily, but as you put more time and more time and more time and more time, and you invest more time and energy into anything, your results are eventually going to like hit a threshold where you're going to start to see like, oh, it really is like an exponential function. That's the way that it works. And an exponential function, for those of you who might be a little bit challenged in math, just refers to the fact that like your results start coming quicker and quicker as time goes on. As you can see here, this is like a good example of an exponential function. This little chart. All right, what's my next point? I have a few things I wanted to talk about. Okay, here's why, you know, a lot of people are into the stock market. I'm gonna just stop sharing my screen here for a second. Or not for a second, I'm just gonna stop sharing. A lot of people think about the stock market and they get involved in it, they get into it and they think, oh wow, this is like a way to, you know, get rich quick. They kind of see dollar signs, right? They let that instant gratification get a hold of them rather than delayed gratification. Here's the reality behind instant gratification in the stock market. It doesn't exist, okay? It exists for like a tiny fraction of people that either get like really, really lucky or spend, like they turn this into a career. In which case, you know, you can make a lot of money doing any career that you spend a lot of time and energy into. But even the people that make a lot of money with the stock market by turning it into a career, even they're pretty lucky, or they're doing it by kind of like making commission off of scamming other people. Like if you've watched that movie Wolf of Wall Street, where they're doing the sales calls where they're selling stocks to people, that's a pretty good example of the way that it works. But my proof for this point that I'm making here is there was a little experiment that they did where they got a bunch of chimpanzees, and then I forget how many it was. I think it was like 4 chimpanzees, and then they got 4 Wall Street professionals, like 4 stockbrokers on Wall Street. And they presented all 8 contestants in this experiment, or all 8 participants, with a group of 8 stocks. And those 8 stocks were the same for all the participants, and they gave it to them at the same time. And they got the stockbrokers to do like an analysis over the 8 stocks and pick 4 of them. So they picked half. And then they got the chimpanzees to also pick 4 of them. Obviously, chimpanzees can't do an analysis. They're just randomly choosing. So the point of this experiment was to see, like, is it really kind of luck? Like, does the stock market actually, you know, do stockbrokers actually have like any prediction power over these stocks? And the answer that they concluded with this experiment was no, because the chimpanzees, after like 5 years, 10 years or whatever it was, they went back to the stocks and they found that the chimpanzees actually produced like greater returns based off of their picks than the stockbrokers. So that just goes to show you that like hand picking stocks is a trap. You're probably going to spend a lot of time and energy looking into like which stocks to hand pick. And if the Wall Street professionals who did like an analysis on them aren't picking the right ones, you're not going to pick the right ones. You're going to waste a lot of your time and energy just looking to like get rich quick. It's not something that I advise you do. If you don't believe me, fine, go ahead. But I just don't advise that it's a good idea. I think hand picking stocks is a gamble. It's a losing game. I mean, like, unless you're doing something like day trading or something like that. But even that, I've heard a lot of horror stories with people like losing the house day trading and whatnot. So that's why this is a far better investment strategy than hand picking stocks. Now, I also want to make a point that I'm not professing that this be how you make your fortune and your wealth. This is not a career. This is a bonus. This wealth is a cherry on top. It's an extra $100,000 of passive income per year once you get to a point where you like want to retire or whatever, how many years you're waiting based off of how much you're investing. You could play around with the calculator and see what that number is. But this is just a bonus. I'm not telling you to rely on this, obviously, because you're playing a really big waiting game here. This is just extra. This is like a nice cherry on top. It's also really good practice because you're practicing good habits around money. You're being responsible and you're saving your money. And it's this like implementing this strategy is going to get you to be more aware of like the way that you spend your money as well. If you're looking for like, where can I come up with that extra $200 to $300 a month, or 200 to 500, 100 to 500, whatever. The first place to look is, okay, how do I spend my money? Can I cut costs a little bit? And it's also going to get you to just be more responsible in the sense that, like I said, it's instead of instant gratification, it's delayed gratification. And that's a very good skill to build, learning how to delay gratification. That is going to be a very fruitful habit for you. What else did I want to talk about? Yeah, like I said, so this is just a cherry on top. I'm not sitting, like I still encourage you to build your wealth with your career that you are passionate about. Spend a lot of your time and energy, the majority of your time and energy doing that. This is just a cherry on top. Another thing that I wanted to say is that this is not what I would advise to be your number one investment, especially if you don't really have a career yet. Like if you're a young person, you don't really have a career yet that's established, that's producing you good income. This is not, even if you do, this isn't what I would say should be your number one investment. You should be first and foremost investing your time, your money, and your energy into developing skills. Because developing skills and getting better at your industry, whatever you're in, is going to be what is helping you to actually make money in your career. And that is where the majority of your wealth is going to come from. That's where the money that you're going to be able to invest is going to come from. That's where you having a budget that is big enough that you could set aside that extra couple $100, hopefully it's that extra $500 a month, is going to come from. So don't just see this and see dollar signs and think like, okay, I'm going to jump on this and this is going to make me rich. You don't want to wait like 30, 40 years to be rich. I mean, everybody, like I said, that quote, everybody wants to get rich quick. Nobody's willing to get rich slow. This is like, you could literally work minimum wage full time and implement this strategy as long as you're living below your means, and you will be wealthy in your 60s or in your 50s if you're a really young person and you start doing this early. So this is like really just a foolproof plan, literally how anyone can make $100,000 a year passively. However, I don't want you to be anyone, right? We don't just want to be anyone. We don't want to be average. We want to be pretty exceptional. We want to be above the curve. We want to go above and beyond. The average person just like settles for mediocrity. We don't want to do that, okay? So kind of lost my train of thought, but you get the point. You are going to be investing in skills that are going to be able to make you your money, okay? That are going to be able to let you live a life that you're passionate about by having a career that you're passionate about that lets you make a lot of money and reap a lot of fruit from that career. So I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover in this video. Gets to the point. Like I said, this is just a bonus. It's a really good practice because it's practicing delayed gratification versus instant gratification. Oh, here's the point I was trying to make before where I lost my train of thought. The whole get rich quick thing, investing in skills is going to involve a lot of your time and energy. It's going to involve a lot of hard work. You don't just like pay money for skills. You have to pay some money to get somebody to teach you the skills, but then you actually have to put time and energy into learning and implementing them and building them into, whatever enterprise or whatever business that you're trying to grow for yourself. So that's not something that's going to happen overnight. That's going to take a lot of hard work, and it's going to be like maybe 3 to 10 years before you see like a lot of really good results from that. That is still the power of compound interest, right? When you show up every day, when you put in that work, you're going to reap the compound interest of that. However, that's not going to take 30, 40 years. You're going to start to see those results in like, 3, 5, 10 years. Okay, so that's not a get rich quick thing, but it's certainly a lot quicker than this strategy. Like I said, this strategy is just a cherry on top. It's how anyone can make $100,000 passively. over time, just implementing the strategy. All right, I think that's it for this video. To sum up, that's how anybody can make $100,000 passively. It just takes time. It's a really good practice because you practice good habits around money. It makes you more aware of your money. Like, for you to do this, you have to ask yourself some questions and take a look at the way you spend your money if you don't already do that, which I strongly encourage that you do. Hand picking stocks versus implementing this strategy is a losing game. You're not going to win out like that. You can look at all the research. It backs that up. This is the best strategy to go with for investing, in terms of just being able to invest a couple $100s a month anyway. If you're investing in something like real estate, different story. You can do that too, but obviously that takes a lot more money all at once to invest in. So this is something that pretty much anybody can do that's got some income. And yeah, that's just about it. That's it. I laid it all out for you. Hopefully you can take that and run with it. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe to my channel for more content like this, guys. I really hope you found this valuable. I think it's really valuable. That's why I made this video. It's a message that I really wanted to get out there for anybody watching this. And let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Share this with a friend. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Have a good one.